So, Kevin and Julian, reports out of Germany this week say that Alphonso Davies and Bayern Munich have opened up discussions on what perhaps a new deal will look like. We should state the current deal doesn't expire to 2025, but I want to get you guys' opinion. If you're Alphonso Davies, do you stay or do you go? Kev?
Yeah, it's a really interesting one. I think it's something that we're going to watch over the next while. And even if he signs a deal, I think that's probably going to be irrelevant on whether he's going to stay or not. I think Bayern will obviously protecting their interest, protecting the asset, and it just secures them a huge transfer fee if he's going to move in 2 or 3 years' time. But in answer to your question, Kelcey, I think it's a good one. I think the only thing I would say is that it's two parts to it, really. Does he want to go and have a successful career playing right at the very top, one of the top clubs in Europe, winning a championship virtually every season? Which, you know, the competition we know in Germany isn't as competitive as it is in certain other leagues around Europe, Julian, is it? But or does he see himself saying, look, I want to go and seriously test myself? And I personally, if I'm in Alphonso Davies' position, I think there's not many better clubs than Bayern Munich. That's to be said, isn't it? Could you have a 10 or 15-year career there and say, I've won 10 Bundesliga titles, perhaps even 2 or 3 Champions League? That, for me, would be enough. It's all down to the fact of what he would want for himself, and does he want to go and test himself in probably a more competitive league, which it stands out to me to say Premier League would be the ideal destination. He's rumoured to be a Chelsea supporter growing up, so Chelsea would look like the ideal destination. And as I said, Bayern securing the asset by a transfer fee, which would probably be in excess of 100 million, Julian.
Yeah, no, he's certainly, you know, for me, and we all know, best left back in the world. So Bayern Munich definitely, you know, they would want to find a player maybe almost as good as him, but there's nobody right now in that moment you know, at his level. So why would they want to release him? Why would they want to sell him? And Bayern, knowing Bayern, I just know if this is a long-term play for Alphonso Davies, you know, it's one of the best clubs in the world in terms of how they treat you as a player post-career. And I think that's something that Alphonso Davies kind of has for himself, where if he's that successful, winning trophies for domestically, winning in the Champions League, you know, there's really not many clubs, as you mentioned, Kev, that could, you know, fulfill the needs that he would want. Real Madrid, Barcelona, maybe outside of England. Those are probably the only 2 teams I could think of. And then, you know, Man City, Man United. Yeah. But then it's the type of player he is as well. You know, what style does he?
And has he hit his ceiling yet? Like, has he actually hit his ceiling at left back yet?
I would say yes. You know, the way Bayern's designed, he's allowed to not defend so well. And he gets away with it.
Right. Yes, yeah, right? I agree.
You know, and I think we've seen players like Trent Alexander-Trent, for instance, at Liverpool, who does not do a great job defending, but however, when he goes forward, he's very, very effective. And Alphonso's that type of guy for Bayern Munich. But the way Bayern Munich is as a whole, you know, they seem to protect him defensively, so he's allowed to get away with a lot of the defensive responsibilities. Now at Man City, they possess the ball 90% of the time. He may have the freedom to go forward a lot, but and not defend so much. So
just one thing, sorry, John, to cut across you, but you mentioned something there before. He's looking maybe post-career. You mentioned post-career. There's not many better sides that would look after the players. Do you think Alphonso Davies is really in that mindset where he's thinking 10 or 15 years beyond now? Because he's still only a young man and he's still got a lot of football to be played in his career, hasn't he? That's the thing.
Well, he could be the ambassador for Bayern Munich in Canada. Right?
That's true.
That's how Bayern think at times, and that's what they do with a lot of their players who've spent many years with that club, and they somehow find these outlets for them in other parts of the world, and he could be that guy for Canada, the ambassador for Bayern Munich. But yeah, sure, he's not thinking that. You know, Bayern for sure they will have that design for him if that's the case, but he certainly would want to push himself outside of Germany, going to England, top leagues in the world for sure. But that's also the opportunity. If that's not the case, then he's in a great position in my eyes to sign there long term.
It's unreal what he's been able to accomplish already and where he can go. If he decides to stay at Bayern, or if he decides to expand his horizons, maybe follow in his dad's dreams of his dad being a Chelsea fan and him playing for Chelsea too.
It's an interesting one, Kelcey. I probably never fully answered the question when you say what should he do. And personally, as I was saying earlier, there's not many better clubs than Bayern Munich. So if I was in his position, I would probably lean on staying with Bayern Munich, because I would say I'm going to spend the next 10 years exactly winning, successful team, and be that, as you say, Julian, maybe that little focal point of an attacking side. He doesn't necessarily have to concentrate defensively. I think if he went into a different league, it could expose
Yes.
that flaw that's to his game. That's the one thing I would say.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing he has to be very careful of. You know, he gets away with a lot defensively. He does. But you go to a team like Liverpool, for instance, and it doesn't go well, and then he gets exposed. You know, how do you rebound from that? Bayern have found a way to protect him on so many levels, where he's become the best left back in the world, but more so offensively. But defensively, he's not the greatest defender where you cannot pass him. So I think that's something he's going to have to really look at. And I think, you know, to play it safe, I would definitely sign long-term with Bayern Munich if I was Alphonso Davies.
And then decide whether the challenge is, do I become not only the best offensive left back in the world, but do I work on the defensive side of it and see if you can shore that up, even at Bayern, and become truly one of the greats in the game, right? I know he doesn't need to, but as far as like the player growth chart, like you're looking like, how can I improve each year? You look at each player wanting to get better, and maybe the offensive side of it, the attacking side of it, it's like, I can do that. But what if I become this in addition to that?
I don't see him even wanting to do that.
With the national team, right? The national team is way up top.
Yeah, there's also a difficulty to that where Bayern Munich actually don't really need him or want him to be actually doing that. He doesn't need to be back in position at times because he's such a great outlet for them. He can carry the ball up the pitch 50, 60 yards, up that pitch. And there's no other player, as you touched on, Julian, he's probably the best in his position or at what he does in world soccer right now. And that is why Bayern Munich will be obviously desperate to keep him, but there's no need to actually get him to focus on that side of his... It's a difficult one when you say it like that, because realistically you always want to get better and you're always trying to improve yourself. But he's not necessarily going to be in the frame of mind where I need to actually work on the defensive side of my game, because they have 90% or 80% possession in every game that they play.
Yeah, in the short term, it's going to be focusing with Bayern. They've got the Champions League tie coming up against Manchester City in April, and then, of course, trying to win yet another Bundesliga title with Alphonso Davies playing at left back on one of the best teams in the world.